I want you to just take a moment and think about the difference between, say, a blueprint and an actual building.
Right.
A blueprint is it's
Ah,
light, it's paper, you can roll it up, stick it in your pocket.
you can forget about it.
Exactly. But the building, I mean, that's stone, that's timber, concrete. It has weight, it deals with gravity.
Yeah.
Have you ever really considered the sheer force it takes to turn that piece of paper
Yeah.
into heavy, tangible reality?
It's the fundamental alchemy of the universe, isn't it? To take a thought, a desire, which is fleeting, and to harden it into matter.
Yeah.
And up in the night sky, there's a very specific reddish star, Aldebaran, the eye of the ball, that holds the blueprint for exactly that process.
The fourth station of the moon.
The fourth station. It's the celestial location where desire actually transforms into creation.
So we're back at our table here in Cafe Karma. Charts are all spread out on the marble. Coffee's hot.
And it's quiet today.
It is. It's perfect for this. Today we are zooming in on the mechanics of Rohini.
Rohini. It's located entirely within the sign of Taurus, specifically from 10 degrees up to 23 degrees, 20 minutes.
And it feels like the next logical step. I mean, if you've been following our previous deep dives, we had the spark with Ashwini,
Right, the incubation with Brahma.
Polari with Kritika, and now with Rohini, we get the growth.
The growth.
So let's unpack that name first. Rohini. It sounds very lyrical, but linguistically, it's actually quite muscular.
It is. The etymology is from the root word ru, which means to rise or to climb. So Rohini translates to the growing one.
A growing one.
But it also means the reddish one.
Which connects us directly to the astronomy, to Aldebaran, the red giant star. But red here isn't just a color on a spectrum, is it?
No, not at all. In Vedic symbology, red is the color of rajas. It's passion, it's the warmth of blood, the metabolic heat you need to sustain life.
The flush of fertility.
Exactly. It's not a passive color, it's the color of desire in action.
It's the difference between a drawing of a fire and the actual heat coming off of it.
A perfect analogy.
Which I think brings us to the primary symbol you see in all the texts. I'm looking at the charts here, and I see an ox cart. Now, to a modern ear, that sounds quaint, a little rural, slow even. But I suspect that's a bias we need to check at the door.
Absolutely. You have to strip away that 21st century lens. In the ancient world, the ox cart wasn't, a scenic ride in the country.
Right.
It was the 18-wheeler of its day. It was heavy industry. It was the only vehicle that could move the heavy harvest from the field to the city.
So if Ashwini was the race car, all speed and impulse, Rohini is the freight train.
Exactly. It represents capacity. The ox cart symbolizes the wheel of commerce. It's financial dealings, the movement of material resources, the infrastructure that makes civilization possible.
It's not about how fast you can go.
It's about how much weight you can carry. You are literally carrying the fruits of creation.
That puts a huge emphasis on the material world. This isn't just about having a spiritual idea. It's about having the lumber and the stone to actually build it.
Precisely. And that idea of building is reinforced by the secondary symbol you often see associated with Rohini.
The banyan tree.
The banyan tree.
Which is a fascinating structural metaphor. It doesn't just grow up, it grows down.
It drops its roots from its branches all the way down into the soil, anchoring itself again and again.
Until one tree becomes a whole forest.
That is the energy of Rohini. It roots, it anchors, and it dominates the landscape. It's just relentless growth.
That word relentless.
Yeah.
That actually gets us right into the mythology, because you can't really talk about Rohini without talking about the disruption of cosmic order, the story of the moon's favoritism.
The great scandal of the sky.
The story goes that Soma, the moon god, has 27 wives, right? The Nakshatras.
And he's supposed to spend one night with each, creating the lunar cycle.
But he gets to Rohini. And he basically says, I'm done moving. I'm staying here.
He refused to visit the others. He only wanted to dwell in her house.
Now, usually this is framed as kind of a celestial soap opera. But if we look at it structurally, if the moon represents the mind, what is this myth actually telling us about our own psychology?
It's a really profound insight. The nature of the mind, the moon, is to wander. It's fickle. It's always waxing and waning.
Right.
But when the mind encounters the energy of Rohini, it finds stability. It becomes enchanted by the material world.
So it stops wandering and it starts nesting.
Exactly. This implies that Rohini is the most magnetic, the most seductive energy in the entire zodiac. It's the only force that's powerful enough to stop the moon from moving.
So this is where the mind settles down to build a life, a home, a civilization.
Yes, it represents bliss and even intoxication.
But that stability comes at a price. In the myth, the other sisters complained, and the moon was cursed to wane. So there's a suggestion here that this kind of obsession, even a productive obsession, creates a serious imbalance.
Stability is essential for creation, but exclusion creates shadow. And we see this even more intensely in the other myth tied to this star, which involves the presiding deity Brahma,
The creator.
the creator himself. And this is the cosmic incest myth.
It's a difficult story for the modern mind, for sure. But basically, Brahma creates Rohini, and then he falls completely in love with her. He chases his own daughter.
And we have to look at the symbolism here, not the literalism of it. Brahma is the creative impulse. Rohini is the creation itself.
The artist falls in love with the painting.
Yes. The myth is telling us that the creator became captivated by Maya, by the illusion of the material world.
It's just that alluring.
It highlights that Rohini is the most seductive aspect of the material world. It's the wish-fulfilling cow. It is the force of desire that drives the entire universe to keep creating. I mean, if reality wasn't seductive, if the harvest wasn't rewarding, who would endure the hardship of the work?
So desire isn't just an emotion here, it's the engine. It's literally the fuel for the ox cart.
Precisely. Without that intense attraction, without that falling in love with the material outcome, that ox cart doesn't move an inch.
Okay, so let's pivot to the mechanics of that. We've got this intense desire, this magnetism. How does the system actually turn that into stuff? The texts mention a specific power, a Shakti.
Yes, Rohini possesses Rohana Shakti, and that translates simply to the power to make things grow.
And there's a formula for this, right? The texts say the basis above is plants, and the basis below is water.
It's a cosmic formula for agriculture. It's that simple. When you bring the waters to the plants, what happens?
Creation. Fertility.
You get growth.
It seems so simple, but it's foundational. If Ashwini was the spark and Kritika was the fire that cleared the land,
Then Rohini is the garden itself. It is the fertility that materializes the abstract energy. And this makes perfect sense when we look at the planetary rulers involved.
right, because we're in the sign of Taurus, so the landlord, so to speak, is Venus,
But the star itself, the Nakshatra, is ruled by the moon.
the double feminine.
Exactly. You have Venus beauty, luxury, reproductive fluids, and you have the moon, the mother, the mind, nurturing.
In Ayurveda, we call this Haikafa, wouldn't we? It's all earth and water. It's wet clay.
It is the wet clay of the universe, the most receptive and productive energy in the sky. But here's the paradox that trips people up.
Okay.
The symbol is a cow. The elements are earth and water. It all sounds very passive, very chill.
Yeah.
But the guna, the quality assigned to it, is rajas, which means active, passionate, high energy.
So how do you reconcile that, the passive cow with the active rajas?
Think of a farmer. From the road, a farm looks peaceful, right? Pastoral.
Totally.
But the farmer himself, he's working harder than anyone. Turning soil into food requires constant, active, almost aggressive work against the elements. That is the paradox of Rohini. It looks calm, but underneath, it's a furnace of productivity.
So it's not the frantic activity of, say, running a race. It's the industrious activity of building an empire.
Correct. It creates structure. It turns energy into mass. And that is why it's classified as a Dhruva star.
Which means fixed.
Fixed. Permanent. In electional astrology, if you want to plant a seed, build a house, or start a bank account that you want to grow for 50 years,
Yeah.
you do it under Rohini.
You do it when you want something to last and to expand.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the macro view. The heavy hauler, the seductive creator, the garden. But you know I like to look at the fine print. Let's break down the padas, the 4 quarters of the star. Because depending on the specific degrees, the flavor of this growth energy changes quite a bit.
The padas really act like a prism. They split that one big energy of growth into 4 very distinct beams.
All right, so let's start with pada 1. This falls in the Aries Navamsa, so it's ruled by Mars.
Right, so now you're injecting Mars fire drive into this very fertile Venus and moon garden.
That sounds intense.
It creates a very passionate, almost carnal energy. But the texts, specifically the Ravana Samhita, point out something interesting. It mentions a focus on, of all things, writing or philanthropic works.
Writing. That seems a bit counterintuitive for a Mars position.
Not if you think of it as the spiritual warrior energy. It's the drive to create. But it's being directed through the intellect and the passion of Mars. So it's not just growing cabbages, it's growing ideas. It's the struggle to make an idea manifest on paper.
Okay, that makes sense. Moving on to Parda 2. This is the Taurus Navamsa, ruled by Venus.
This is the sweet spot. This is what we call Vargadama. The planet is in Taurus in the main chart and Taurus in the subplot. It's the Earth element at its absolute peak.
So this is a jackpot position for material results.
In a material sense, absolutely. This indicates extreme materialism, abundance, the ability to kind of conjure resources out of thin air.
Wow.
It is the power to make things real. If you have planets here, you are likely very, very good at manifesting tangible results. But of course, it comes with the risk of getting stuck in the mud.
The material girl, Pada. Got it. Okay, then we have Pada 3. This falls in Gemini, ruled by Mercury.
So now we introduce Mercury's intellect to the mix. This Pada is more flexible, it's shrewd, it's jovial. This is where you see the arts and sciences come in, business.
So if Pada 2 is the raw wealth,
Pada 3 is the merchant figuring out how to trade it. It's a bit lighter, a bit more adaptable.
and finally Pada 4, Cancer Navamsa, ruled by the moon.
And here we circle right back to the water. We're in the moon's own sign. So this emphasizes the maternal instincts, the home, security.
But there's a downside.
There can be. Because it's so focused on my home and my security, this placement can become possessive. It can lead to hoarding resources. It's like the mother who loves her family so much, she refuses to let them leave the house.
Right, creating this fortress of safety. So taking all these Padas and the mythology together, let's talk about the human being. If someone has their moon or their ascendant in Rohini, what are they actually like?
Well, the classic texts describe the Rohini person as being truthful, having pleasant speech. They usually have a very steady mind. Remember, the moon loves to be here.
And they're often described as attractive or magnetic.
Very much so. But there is a catch.
The bull nature.
There is the bull nature. They can be incredibly stubborn, bull-headed, literally. Once they decide on a path of creation, they will not be moved. You can't push an ox cart sideways. It only goes where the tracks are laid.
And we have to talk about the shadow side. We touched on it with the mythology, with the sisters and the curse.
Yes. The primary shadow of Rohini is jealousy. That myth of the moon's favoritism is a warning. Because Rohini naturally attracts abundance and attention, others may resent it.
Really?
Or the Rohini native might become deeply jealous of anyone who threatens their position as the favorite.
It's the tall poppy syndrome. You grow taller than everyone else, you become a target.
And internally, the shadow is just raw materialism. The drive to create can become an addiction to consume.
This trap of Maya.
This is the trap. The texts mention Sage Atri in connection to this, the idea that this star can consume souls through an excessive attachment to the game of life.
You get so caught up in building the house that you forget why you wanted a home in the first place.
Precisely. You become owned by your possessions.
We have some historical examples that really illustrate these extremes, don't we?
Two stand out significantly. First, you have Lord Krishna,
The ultimate Rohini figure.
born with both his ascendant and his moon in Rohini. He perfectly embodies that magnetic, romantic, charming energy. Everyone fell in love with him.
But he wasn't just a lover.
No, he was also a fierce protector of Dharma. He used that magnetism to stabilize the world.
And on the other end of that spectrum,
Queen Victoria,
the grandmother of Europe.
her ascendant and moon were in Rohini as well. And just think about her reign, the height of the British Empire.
Right.
The expansion of material acquisition, the accumulation of territory, the sun never setting. It was the ox cart carrying the resources of the entire globe back to one place.
That is a powerful contrast. One used the magnetism for spiritual stabilization, the other for imperial expansion.
But both were about growth and holding ground.
Both were about establishing a legacy that lasts. It all comes back to that fixed quality.
Remember, Rohini is the fixed one.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the celestial level of Rohini, how do we summarize this force?
I think Rohini is the star of ascent. It's the cosmic force that stabilizes the wandering mind and then uses that focus to build civilization. It's the garden where we plant our desires and watch them manifest into reality.
It's the heavy lifting that makes all the beautiful things possible.
But, and this is so crucial for our next conversation, growth requires a container. The banyan tree spreads, but it takes up space.
And the ox cart carries the harvest.
But what happens when the cart is overloaded? What happens when the drive to accumulate becomes heavier than the vehicle itself can bear?
That's the human cost. And that is exactly what we're going to explore in our next session, how this celestial productivity manifests in our psychology, and sometimes in our pathology.
I want to leave you with that image of the banyan tree, a single seed that spreads its roots and its branches until it becomes a forest unto itself. It provides shade, yes, but it also dominates the entire landscape.
It's a powerful image. And we have a question for you to take with you into the silence of the library.
If Rohini truly is the power to turn desire into matter, what thought, what specific desire are you currently feeding enough energy to make real?
And are you ready for the weight of it once it actually becomes solid?
Something to think about. We'll see you next time.
Until then.